I feel like I just need to get out of town for a night or a day and a half or something, just to go. There's nothing in inside.
I'm gonna go Thanksgiving weekend in Alabama.
Alabama?
Yeah.
That's a long ride. I've done it twice. It's a long ride. You guys are driving. I hate it.
Go where it's quiet and get some rest.
Well, we got the opportunity to go for Thanksgiving. My wife's got a wedding she has to go to the next day. I don't know who gets married the day after Thanksgiving. And the girl was at our wedding, and Lori feels like she needs to go. They haven't been close over the last 10 years. We have to do that. Are we ready, Patty?
Let's call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Tuesday the 15th of November, right at 6:05 p.m. Councilman Hodge is present, Vice Mayor Laws is present, Councilwoman Garner, Councilman Porter. Two A is the mutual aid agreement with the City of Punta Gorda, tab 1. Is there a motion? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this is a recommendation. I know that you remember Punta Gorda came and made the presentations to the city, and we're grateful for the help that we have provided to them during their storm. And one of the issues was they wanted to enter into a mutual aid agreement with the city to help each other during emergency situations. The copy that you have attached here is a standard FDLE approved mutual aid agreement, and we're recommending that we enter into a mutual aid agreement with them.
I'll move it, Mayor. Moved by Mr. Porter, second by Mr. Hart.
One comment. We don't need this mutual aid agreement because they're down here anyway. When Wilma was here, they were some of the first officers that we saw. So certainly this just formalizes what is already a mutual understanding of each other.
I think we formed a pretty good bond with them when we helped them up there, and they were anxious to return the favor to us when it happened. You're right, they were one of the first groups down here and approved by FDLE to do so.
Thank you, Mayor.
Properly moving second. Any additional question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2B under tab 2 is the approval of participating party agreement with Advantage Group of Florida.
As you will recall, this is involving our fiber optic ring. September 30th, you approved at a special call meeting the selection through a invitation to negotiate arrangement, the AGC, which is Advantage Group of Florida, LLC, they approved them as being the one to enter into a participating party agreement. This replaces Latinap, who we had before, who had defaulted, and we needed, because of our CDBG grant, to get another participating party. This is a participating party agreement. Pretty much mirrors what we had before, meets the state requirements. What we will, once this is done, what we'll immediately enter into is the management agreement. We'll start negotiating that immediately. Again, everybody's anxious to get started on that, so there's no hesitation to move forward on it, and we're recommending approval of this participating party agreement.
Let me ask a question, Mayor.
Mr. Porter.
Does this is on this timeline, we'll still be able to protect the vulnerability with the CDGB and the job creation that was a critical component of getting this fiber?
That's correct. We had a little blip, but they forgot the fact that Wilma had hit us, and we were involved in that at the time. But Mark called up, and we've got that squared away. Mark, any additional comments on that issue?
Mr. Porter, yeah, this will actually trigger the extension period for the grant.
Mark, this agreement now that we've already cut out 6 dark fiber out of the package. Is that correct or incorrect?
There's 6 fibers that are being leased as a straight fiber lease by AGC to provide telephone services. As part of the management agreement, we would meld those 6 fibers back into the overall management agreement.
Okay, so then it will all ultimately be under one, assuming everything goes correctly?
All but the 12 that are reserved for public sector use. Yes, sir.
Those are under the city's authorization?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Now, how are we protected in terms of meeting the obligation with the state? Any liability on part of this company if they don't fulfill the obligations of the state?
We feel this agreement adequately protects the city, and it makes it clear that this contracting party is responsible for those portions of our grant agreement that relate to their responsibilities, and they also have to put up security or evidence of financial strength in reference to the $500,000 capital improvement portion.
Any additional discussion?
Let me ask one more question, Mayor.
Mr. Porter?
I'm sorry. What would be the timeline that there would be an estimate for this to be able to be available for public use or for private use, whatever the case may be? Is there a timeline?
Mr. Porter, AGC has agreed with the city that we would like to have a completed management agreement in place and in front of the council within 30 days.
And then the actual, I know now it's dark fiber, so there's a series of things that have to take place before it can be lit up so that people actually can get onto or have access to. What would be the timeline on that? They would actually be lit, I guess.
I can't answer that directly. Because they're already leasing 6 of the fibers under a private lease agreement, they actually have a leg up on being able to implement that, but I couldn't give you a direct answer on that, sir.
Well, the point is, we've sat with this fiber optic system in the ground, dark fiber in the ground, which is unusable until someone gets it to a point where it can be accessed or from the outside, or it has to be lit up. That was always the problem. It has to be lit up. So this is something that, we need to make sure as a marketing tool. This has always been a marketing tool for the industrial area that we have, and the sooner this is available for to be lit as a marketing tool for that area, the sooner things will start to take place out there, as an opinion of mine. So I'd like to see us, just move forward as fast as possible to have it available.
Well, if I may,
yes, sir.
I think they have right now the capability to light it up if they had the customers on there, and so by getting this participating party agreement and then subsequently the management agreement, we'd be ready to move and put customers on there as they develop the customers.
Right.
And the good thing about that, and one of the things, it'll be prepared that when the park starts to develop and we're getting people in there, that we'll have that available to them, and of course they're motivated as well to have things happen in the park because they're going to service the Park of Commerce, and actually I think plans are in the works for beyond that, just that particular geographical area.
Well, you always got that chicken or egg question, which comes first, and in this case, we've sat with that piece of property and the fiber system totally, at this particular point, underutilized. So I'd like to see, it's nice to see something finally going forward.
If I may, Mr. Porter, also, remember, this is tied to the grant extension and job creation.
Right.
They're going to have to be creating jobs, and they're going to have to pay for that job creation, so it's in their best interest to go out and provide services as quickly as possible to generate income for those jobs.
And just to let everybody know, from the community aspect, that it's really it's a vital part of a long-range plan to develop that industrial area. That was always envisioned, that this fiber optic ring would give us the ability to have high-end, high-paying, high-speed access to the real world through this fiber system. And now it can become a reality because we can light it up. It's been dormant on the table for a long time, is all I'm saying. And it's now time to get this thing going. Thank you.
One last thing, too, for council's knowledge. Going through 4 hurricanes this year, there's been no damage, no impact to the fiber ring.
It's good to hear.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Mr. Hodge?
Thank you, Mayor. In the management agreement, it's where we'll get more in detail than the cost and price of the lease. I would like to suggest that we look into also, I know that at some point when the service is off, the city will get some form of sales tax. But I want to also look, like, for the city to look at an additional per customer rate, whether it's 50 cents or $1. And that could help it could be income to the city for the future, because I just want to get the maximum impact as we can out of the fiber. So, some type of negotiation on that will help create some dollars for our general fund as years go by.
We'll do that.
Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Is there a motion? I'll move it.
There's a motion. There's a move by Mr. Porter, second by Ms. Garner.
Second. Oh.
Okay. Item 2C is the interlocal agreement between Metro Dade and the City of Homestead for solid waste collection and resolution.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this reflects our final agreement with Dade County Solid Waste Department to renew an existing, but also getting ready to end an agreement for the city to continue taking its solid waste out to the Humpty Dumpty, that site. As part of this agreement, actually this agreement's for 20 years, but as part of this agreement, we are now going to be able to serve the Waterstone area, the area that was annexed, that the county's been serving now because we had not renewed this agreement. They were not going to allow us to service that area. Now with this agreement, we anticipate that we'll move forward probably in about a month to take over the service at the Waterstone area. The dumping site is where we've been dumping for years. Of course, you understand that when the county services one of these sites, they need people to come in and contribute, other municipalities, to come in and contribute to that dump site. So they have operating money to continue to operate that site. So it's imperative to the county that all other municipalities be part of this interlocal agreement. And Julio, if I'm not speaking, I think just about everyone is, I don't know if there's one or two that may not be, but everybody is involved in this interlocal agreement.
Yes, everybody. This is a standard agreement that all cities have to abide by.
Comment, Mayor?
Comment, Ms. Garner.
Thank you. I know a lot of the residents in the Waterstone area will be pleased. They've been asking about this, so I just want to make sure we have the equipment and the manpower to take care of them.
Yes, we're ready.
We're ready? I'll take your word on that, Julio.
We just have to make the transition smooth, and we've got the cans, we've got the extra truck and the crew to service the area. We need to do, and we will begin to do once this is approved, sending out information to them and instructions on how this transition is going to take place.
I'll move it, Mayor.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Garner, second by Mr. Hart. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Kurt, would this be the time to go ahead and prospectively incorporate into this agreement any of our annexation areas that are pending now, so that we don't have that gap in the future?
Well, it would be, I don't think the county will do that, because the future annexations are tied up. There's a moratorium placed on annexations by the county, by the commissioner, but with the agreement of other county commissioners right now as they look at annexation again and incorporation again. I forget I don't know if anybody recalls. We don't have Henry Eiler here tonight. But,
does that impact even those that were filed as of the time of the moratorium?
I think we were one that called what we call the pipeline. We were there in the northwest area, so I think we will...
At least from the northwest, yeah.
Yeah, the northwest one. That we're still in that, but the other two are certainly going to... they'll move forward to a certain point, but...
what's the time frame?
Some time, in other words, where I'm going with this. So tying this up with that at this time, I don't believe the county would get involved in that.
Question. What's the time frame in the moratorium? Is it specific?
Well, that's what I was trying to remember. I think it's 90 days to 120 days, something like that. But I'm just going from bad memory on that. I can find.
But our last two were far from being heard within 120 days.
Well, it's been a real challenge to get it. We've gone through, like the Northwest one is our biggest example.
And that's probably the most important.
Right, and we've gone through all the committees, got approvals by everyone. It's just making that last hurdle and getting it on the agenda from BCC, and Commissioner Sejas runs that committee. And it has been a challenge getting it past that committee and on to the BCC agenda.
The November 1st hearing, so that was, what happened on November 1st with the...
I think that was canceled because of the...
It got moved because of the storms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We anticipate that's going to come back up, but that hasn't been anything that's been a real expedited process, I can tell you that.
Question, Mayor?
Mr. Porter?
Steve?
You finished?
Yes, sir.
Councilman?
How much revenue is the county keeping out? How much of the revenue is this county taking back for doing nothing?
Well, now you're referring to the annexation? Or?
No, sir, I'm sorry, I'm back on the garbage.
And Julio, correct me if I'm wrong here, they're charging their regular rate for the service. And so I guess what we would be saying would be our rate that we would apply is, and we're not, making that revenue as we speak. So, but we're not picking up their garbage.
But you lost me, because in this agreement, I know this has to do with going to the dump and taking our garbage to the dump. That's the interlocal agreement. But at the same time, we're getting the rights from the county to go in and service the Waterstone area. And so in that, where we go into the Waterstone area and service, how much of the revenue are they going to take away from the city? Or is that not in this agreement?
There's a tipping fee that we pay, and they're in here. It's various amounts, tipping fee, if you want to explain the process.
Yeah, what this agreement covers is basically, it's an agreement between the city and the county for us to be able to use their landfill. Everything that we take over there, we have to pay a tipping fee, which is approximately $55 per ton. That's what we pay for everything that we collect in the city. Now, what they're collecting in that area, the county themselves they're handling that themselves, so we're not paying for that. In other words, the people that are in the Waterstone area are direct customers of the county for that particular service.
So the county, in effect, is not getting a revenue for what the city will take away from them, other than the fact that we're going to pay the tipping fees for the stuff that we take to the dump.
That is correct. Yeah, they're going to lose the service charge that they have on those customers. Yeah.
Okay, that answers it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. We are currently picking trash up at Waterstone. Are we doing trash once a week? Hurricane only. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do we have a motion on that?
Is there a motion? Was there a motion?
Amanda.
Moved by Ms. Garner, second by, I think, Mr. Hodge. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 2D, tab 4 is the updating of impact fees and resolution.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is staff recommendation for the council to review the potential for increasing impact fees for new construction within the city. As you know, we had a current impact fee. It was revisited by Dr. Nichols, who does the impact fee studies. And at the time, actually, the initial impact study, we did not go to the cap. There was a range, lower, we took about probably the lower middle range and didn't go to the cap. It's proposed that we raise the impact fee to the previous study's cap. And Rick, get me here if I say something wrong, which was for residential is $2.74 a square foot, and for commercial it's 48 cents a square foot. That is the cap on the range from the previous study, and we're just moving there. Yeah.
Those are the ones in this study now. Basically speaking, what Kurt is explaining is that the 274 and 48 is the maximum ceiling you can go to. Right now you're at $1.28 and 33. So anywhere between that is your discretion to increase the impact fees accordingly.
I'll move it because I have a question.
Been properly moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Second by Ms. Garner for discussion. Been any comparative analysis with other cities in terms of impact fees? How do we fare with other?
Well, Mayor, we can do that, but actually, the way the study is, it depends on your own population. It depends on criteria specific to your city. We can say, at the end of the day, we can compare it with other cities, but it really may not be apples to apples, in other words. And we asked that question to our consultant as well, and that was a response that he had. You know, the three areas that we cover in impact fee are police, parks, and public works. On that, currently at the $1.28 is for residential. The police get 22 cents, the parks get $1, the public works get 6 cents. If we and on the commercial, it's 27 cents for the police, nothing for parks because the commercial doesn't create the need for parks, and 6 cents for public works. Under the new proposal, of course, we're talking cap here, and as Rick said, we can go anywhere between the cap and where we are now. At 274, it would be allocated to 47 cents to the police for residential, 217 square foot for parks, and 10 cents for public works. And the commercial would go to 38 cents for police and 10 cents for parks. Excuse me, public works.
The Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Kurt, if we were to adopt a new schedule of impact fees, are there developments or DRIs or areas where they would be exempt from the increase where a lower cap has been put in place by prior agreement?
Only Keysgate area.
So all of the remaining currently approved units in the Villages of Homestead DRI, which is what we now call Keysgate, which would be the lion's share of, presumably, of most of the new units.
Mr. Let me correct this so to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Once, in the past, the council would set up a flat fee. Those flat fees are not going to be changed. And it's not just because this is series, and that will not change. Everything else would be the one that has the increase. And the increase is a function of coming in for the permit. So if they already have the permit, let's say, for 800 units, and have already got the permits for it, this will not affect them. If it's coming in shortly afterwards, the 800 units would get this increase.
Right, I think, and I seem to recall, but just prior to my coming on council, that what we now know is the Waterstone development and the remaining units in the Keysgate DRI were capped.
Phase 1 of Waterstone, that's where I was going. It was just the beginning. So after phase 1, phase 2 went to the total. It would no longer have a standard, a set fee.
No. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Is this too little, too late? I mean, how many new units are really out there in comparison to those who enjoy the cap, no matter what happens?
Well, obviously, it's not necessarily too little, too late. The ones that are already gone are gone, but I can give you an example dollar-wise, which may make you at least be aware of it. For the month of October, the total impact fees was basically $500,000. If this was in fact in place at the cap, it'd be worth $624,000. So again, if you take a guess for this year of
over a year, it could be an additional $1.5 million at the rate.
Basically, yes, sir. In fact, I was going to say, we've done some guess numbers and estimates in terms of permit fees, et cetera, for this year, for the budget. Using that, we'd come up with essentially almost $2 million. Not an increase, but the total, which means you're talking about at least, in that case, another $700,000.
Are there that many more approved units out there that don't enjoy the cap over the next year that equate to 12 months of October's rate of permits?
No, October's rate was, again, I said October was just a 1 month, and October was a steep month. And like I mentioned, the thing is going to slide down during the next year because a lot of them have already been permitted. But it still looks like if you'd had a $500,000 for the month of October, it would have been $625 if indeed we had it. Therefore, I'm guessing that if by the end of this year I used half or the rate that I had planned on, instead of bringing in, it would bring in essentially $1.8 million. So you're talking about a fair amount of money. Now, the other thing you should realize is that this also increases, not substantially, but a fair amount, 45% on commercial. And as Kurt's mentioned before, a lot of the commercial is coming in now, so at least we're going to catch...
Actually, we've seen little or no commercial, I mean, relatively
speaking. The couple real big ones that are hanging out there come in with $450.
large-scale stuff.
They will behave with this figure. As far as the commercial side, which granted doesn't help parks, but it helps the other two departments. Again, what you really need to look at is, one, is this something that should be done? And then really from year 5 or to 7, depending on when we actually do this for the actual number, it determines how much of it. What Dr. Nicholas has been able to do is to tell you what the maximum can be that you can basically take to court and win on. Between what we have now and between that is really your decision. And you take any of those or all of those factors and figure out, instead of going from $1.28 to $2.17, you want to go to $1.89. Whatever number you guys come up with, there's enough validity to say that that number is still going to be valid up to the higher number. Now, the only thing I'll say is if you go down too far, you're going to put the Parks Department, which get the bulk of this thing, behind the 8 ball. They're never going to catch up. Are they going to catch up enough now? It'd be better if this thing was done a year ago, maybe. But again, we do these basically in 2-year increments so that we're not too far behind on it. And again, at this point in time, it's really your call in terms of what the numbers ought to be.
There is another element I need to add to this on P&Z. P&Z did not vote for this. They denied it 4-2. So we think it's more of a maybe not a clear explanation of it at the time. I don't know.
If I might mention that, P&Z voted it down 4-2, but unfortunately our attempts to try to explain it didn't really get through, and what we've done in the meantime, you have in your supplemental report, 2 things P&Z complained about was that they felt that there was too much of an increase real quickly. What they didn't realize is that it's going to go from $1.28 to whatever we do now. They were looking at the very first ordinance, which was 22 cents. So they're looking at a tremendous amount of difference. We're still looking at a pretty good difference, but not that amount. And the other concern was that the city staff and the departments that are involved would do this more often, and we're explaining to them that we have done it basically on a 2-year run. So theoretically, when I explain it again to P&Z this Wednesday, just for their information, they should be fine with it. But again, they can vote it down. It comes here, and if you guys understand the explanation, you can obviously continue and vote it forward. You have the option of voting it down as well, whatever you would like to do.
Has there been an adjustment since the 2000 or 2001 when Waterstone was coming in? I don't think there has been. Has there, Kurt?
No, not. I think we had this a third.
According to my friend here who's done some of the research, it's 2003 was the last time this was done. So it's basically 2 years. It's been about a 2-year. We did it 2001, 2003, 2005, and if everything is still running, we'll probably revisit it again in 2007. May not need to at that point in time, but at least we've been doing it on a 2-year run so that we don't end up being way behind or way ahead.
Oh, just one more. This is growth paying for itself, clearly.
Yes, sir.
The developer's on. It's passed on in the cost of the unit.
Yes, sir.
Question, Mayor.
Mr. Cosner?
Yes. Basically, that opened up my question that I had initially. But I would also, I know there's a couple of P&Z people in the committees in the audience. I would like to hear what their opinions were on the reason why they voted the way they voted. If they would be so kind to share their information.
Susan Newman, 2835 Fairways Drive. I have to think back on our discussions of this. I haven't read my minutes yet for tomorrow. But I think what the discussion did go on, a tenfold increase was a lot for an increase. And I think what it came down to was that, yes, it'll be passed right on to the buyer of the house. And we're already talking about trying to keep things affordable housing, and that is not going to help at all. That was our response.
But I needed to verify that again, the idea of 10% or 10 times full was what they understood. That's not the case. If this was used, you're basically doing it by 214, or basically almost doubling it, if indeed you go to the top number of the ceiling.
Well, I look at the difference between the cost of the police officers and the park. I mean, if the park is going to raise 10% over, 10 folds over your over your police officers, that would be sort of bad. I want to say a bad message to your investors.
Well, let me explain the comment to that, Mr. Taylor, and to the council. There are certain methodologies that Dr. Nicholas goes through and certain approved formulas that everybody who does this uses. And one of the basic things is that the police basically has an infrastructure already there. Parks, when new people show up, you're doing it from scratch, buying the land and everything else. That's why the park is so much higher numbered than the other two. Higher than the other two combined, because again, both Public Works and the police station or police department has a lot of infrastructure in place. The parks, you have to start from scratch.
Yeah, but I mean, I was told that we have enough parks to be enough sufficient for this area. Wouldn't you think that you had brought those guys in to show us the time, those park overlay and all that stuff?
I'd just add that our master plan shows that we need additional parks, and just Humpty Dumpty alone, the one that we are building, or will be building, the money we get from the bond, the GOB, really won't be quite enough to finish what we're doing there. And that's the big one out east where a lot of the growth is. And we're going to need additional money, since it's going to be impact fees that we're hoping can finish that off. So, I mean, that's just a comment to add to it.
That's basically the reason why there's such a disparity between the numbers. One is starting from scratch, the other one has an infrastructure that's already built in.
And you said to raise it tenfold all at once is kind of hard. Plus remember, we have a contingency fund that we're putting extra tax dollars into right now that the city's not using. So, I mean...
Well, first of all, Mr. Taylor, the thing, as the error that we gave, or that we were not able to clear up at P&Z, it's not tenfold. It's basically twice, if indeed the full end is being done. Right now, the park is $1. The total fee for residential is $1.28. If it goes to this one, the park will be $2.17. That's basically a 1.17 increase, and the others go up accordingly. So there was a misconception that it's 10 times. It's not 10 times.
I was just looking at the numbers that was presented to me.
No, that's what I said. That there was a misunderstanding in terms of how we presented it, and we couldn't get back to explain it any better, so we felt at this point in time, you have the right to deny it, and you can come here. What we have for everybody at P&Z come tomorrow is a complete explanation of the history of it and when it happened, 2001, 2003, and 2005. And it is still a difference of basically 214%, not a times 10.
Because I remember when our utility bill went up 5 folds because we didn't catch it in years gone by.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to hear a little bit what was going on, because it's not often that an item such as this was denied by P&Z, so it's just good to be able to hear from them and get that information. Also, looking at the proportion against the parks and the police department is, I also agree with the first thing that I did when I saw that. I said it's kind of opposite-ended, knowing that although we've been steadily hiring police officers, we're forever short on hiring them, and I understand the impact fees do not pay salaries, only can buy police cars and things of that magnitude. But surely if we can even out those dollars a little bit more, it'd be more cost-effective when we're hiring police officers.
Unfortunately, Mr. Hines, that's not an option, as I understand it. The numbers are for these 3 things, and because they're all the formulas and everything else. Now, you have the option, let's say, if you want to even out on parks and make parks 35 cents in additional instead of the maximum 217. But as far as the public works, based on those numbers, they can only go up from 6 to 10. And based on the police, it's only going up from like 27 to 47, whatever those numbers are. Unfortunately, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, you do not have the option to mix and match. You have 3 columns, and you're going to pick A, B, and C. In each of those columns, you can say, I'll go to the maximum, or I'll go somewhere in between. But there's not the ability to commingle money and say, because I feel, maybe even if you're correct, that it should be less for parks and more for police. That's not really an option.
Who dictate those numbers?
If I could address that, these are calculated by legally upheld methodology that's been approved by Florida courts, that when you want to create an impact fee, it has to be commensurate with offsetting the increased capital costs, and each one has to be calculated separately. You can, as Rick stated, you cannot intermingle a public works impact fee with a police impact fee or park or vice versa. Each has to be calculated separately, and it's like a complex formula. Dr. Nicholas of the University of Florida has included his report showing his calculations. He's recognized as the top, certainly one of the top, but most likely the top expert on preparation of impact fee study reports. And when a court reviews any of these impact fees, the first thing they always look at is the study material and the methodology. So that's why he has carefully done this, but naturally it's up to the City Council how far you go up to the maximum that his report authorizes.
Okay, I understand the intermingling proportion of it, but what I'm getting at is I realize there's 3 different areas, but what actually dictates? Okay, let's say if we wanted to give the police officers the $1 and do the 50 cents for the park, that's not intermingling. That's basically saying we support our police officers.
Right. In other words, the expert's report goes through details showing how he calculated all this, and this is not a discretionary matter. We can't alter those figures because they're based on actuals. For example, the parks are based on the park size, the land value, the improvements value, total value. It all goes into the value of these facilities and assets.
So this
it's all like the capital.
This is his recommendation, is what you're saying.
This is his recommendation.
Okay.
To be able to make it different. In other words, if you wanted to completely alter it, you'd have to have an expert that could create something completely different, and I don't see that happening because this is, a very top expert in this area, and his calculations are ones you can have confidence in, whereas if you try to change these drastically to somehow level them all out, that wouldn't hold up in court.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but I guess I'm not being too clear. What I am saying is that is his recommendation.
Right. That's his calculation. It's not just a...
So who is his recommendation? Who dictate the numbers other than his recommendation? What keep us from controlling those numbers, whether we want to move one higher than the other?
Because it's like a scientific, in other words, his thing is not just a recommendation, it's an economic and almost like a scientific recommendation. In other words, he does his mathematical and economic calculations, and that's where he arrives at his figure. He doesn't just like create it or say this is fair. He does here in these tables, that's set forth in the end of his report, page 6, 7, and 8, he sets forth his calculations of how he comes up with these figures. Actually, page 7, 8, and 9. He sets forth how he calculates these figures. So it's not something that we can just create like, with other requirements. We can create, a 30-day time limit or a 45-day time limit. As long as it's reasonable, we can do it. With this is different. This has to be justified by economic, mathematical calculations.
Okay, let me ask this way then. Based on our rapid growth and our rapid need for police officers, was that taken into his calculations?
Right, that's correct.
Basically
He takes into account the existing facilities and the facility needs, but that's the key. He takes into account hard items, facilities, cars. He cannot take into account, labor costs, the cost of making sure the officers have a decent wage. So it's capital items. That's why when Rick said earlier that a lot of the police facilities already exist, that is a distinction there. And the park facilities have to still be built, from scratch, but whereas the police facilities exist. So, his fee increase recommendation on the police fee is justified by the calculations he does there. And the thing is about this, the reason that this is structured in such a way is that the developers pay this fee, but once the fee is received by the city, it can only be spent in these same categories. The park money is spent on future park needs, the public works on the public works needs, the police on the police needs. So that's why you have to base these on what your actual needs and costs are of a capital nature.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Garner and then Mr. Porter.
Thank you. I think we've needed to revise this for a while now, but looking at the ceiling, especially for the Parks and Rec. Now, Parks and Rec are a quality of life issue. It's very important, but we've just changed our code so that all of the new PUDs have to have certain green space and park requirements. So that one I feel is kind of high. I'm not sure I don't think we should go to the ceiling, but I'm not sure where we should go. And with the police and the public works, yes, I think those should be increased, and I don't see that the increase is quite as large. I don't know where we should settle, but I don't think that the ceiling is really quite where we should go. I'm really not comfortable with the Parks and Rec ceiling.
If I may answer one question, just for reference, at the PUDs that you're talking about essentially a private park. These numbers are for public park, but I do agree with you that number, and historically, just for what it's worth, the council has always taken that one number and not gone to the ceiling, and the other two, they've historically gone more towards the ceiling. That is still an option that makes a lot of sense.
Right, but the impact fee to me is what they have to pay for bringing that new area, and if that new area is having some of its own parks,
but their own
I
parks
can't really validate that high of an increase.
Those parks are, again, private parks. This is for public parks. This is a pay for a park for everybody in the city, including those people in the developments. That's the distinction. I understand your comment, and it is the distinction, and I tend to agree with you that the number ought to be somewhere between the buck and the 217. What number? That's obviously your call.
Excuse me, if I may, Mayor. To my understanding, the PUDs, when they're building the parks, they're building the PUDs and placing the parks strategically so that they'll be available to the public as well. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, sir. The parks in the PUDs are for the residents in the PUDs. They pay for their park. They basically use it.
I can almost assure and swear to God that I've approved some that's been open to the public. I mean, unless I'm...
Some of the developments we have approved have had parks, but they weren't necessarily PUDs. Like Waterstone, those are not public parks, they're, inside gates, but we did approve one neighborhood that was single-family houses that had a park inside the neighborhood, but it was open to the public, but that was not a PUD. I think that's what you're thinking of.
And that's a rarity. That's not typical. That just happened in that case.
That was a Sky Vista.
I don't remember, but I remember it was a specific case. And it was also the caveat in that one that if indeed it turned out to be a real problem for the neighbors, or for the people who actually built it, they would essentially fence it off later and say it's a private park again. That is a distinction between the private and the public part of this thing. I realize it's a big dollar value to look at, and that's why, again, you have the option of coming anywhere between. But that's the reason why what's being built into the PUDs is not the same thing that's here. They still have, again, well, I guess rather than just repeating myself, I'm sorry.
Well, there's two things. Obviously, we know that impact fees can only be used for initial purchases. And if we take a look at our Parks Master Plan, I know Rick Stotts has a park in the middle of the southwest neighborhood that's going to be a totally public park that is not acquired yet, correct? So there's one park in the southwest neighborhood that has to be acquired through some means or mechanism. I think the park plan had out west, we needed an additional 40 acres out to the west side, which would include any new annexation issues as well, and do the impact fees also pertain to expansions of existing?
Yes, sir.
So any expansion of any residential, existing residential, or any new construction would have an impact fee attached to the addition?
Yes. Answer your question and make sure I got it right, because I'm not sure. Ask it one more time, Mr. Porter, please.
Expansions, if someone adds 20,000 square feet to their house or 5,000 square feet to their house, do they pay an impact for that expansion? Or just in a permit?
The only impact they would pay would be on the additional demand that their expansion is having on facilities within the city.
Right, but there is an impact fee attached to that expansion.
If it does provide an additional demand.
Right.
Yes.
So the point is that this isn't just a new development issue as much as it's a redevelopment issue as we redevelop the southwest community. And as the parks need to be created, more public parks where you have areas that aren't going to be PUDs. Because there's a lot of areas in the city that are going to be redeveloped that they should, in fact, pay some fair share. Whether it's $2.17 is not the issue, but we are going to be required to purchase parklands or make parklands in the case of the Southwest Master Plan that we currently don't have funds for. Correct or incorrect?
Correct. And again, Mr. Porter, hopefully to answer your question properly, everything that comes in that requires a permit will pay a fee. Now, obviously, it's on square footage, so if you got a small addition, you're going to pay a small part, but you'll pay something. When you're talking about the southwest neighborhood and the fact that there's parks out there, or parks needed out there, the impact fees can be from the overall pot and be used to increase the city's public parks. So therefore, it could, and again, either Chad or me, Marlene, correct me if I'm wrong, that impact money can be used to create a park in the southwest neighborhood.
Okay, because I agree we need to look at the numbers. All right, there's a clear confusion with the $2.17 ceiling on the park portion, because I agree with everyone else. If you look at the public works and you look at the police protection, there's clearly no question there. Clearly no question there. So where could we be as a council in the middle ground with parks that would be suitable? Can staff come up with some other number that isn't just the ceiling?
Let me explain it this way, sir, without giving you a specific dollar amount. And David, correct me if I'm wrong. The way Dr. Nicholas sets this thing up, he uses all the information we have, uses the formulas, etc., and this is the best number he can come up with that is defensible, that can essentially, in his opinion, based on these numbers, keeps you abreast of what your park needs are. Now, if indeed, as the councils have in the past, they've taken that specific number and made it lower, whatever it is, again, using my fictitious number, $1.89 instead of $1.28, it simply means you will have more money for the parks than you had at $1.28. It will also mean that your parks are always going to be slightly behind as far as the dollar input coming in to keep them up to what they would be to pay the share for everything else.
But that confuses me, because the impact fees can't be used for upkeep. They have to be for...
No, I'm saying about bringing it up, in other words, getting the amount you need, not upkeep, square footage, new parks, etc.
Okay, so it is new purchases.
And I agree with you that the number could be something different, and I really didn't want to do this, so I'll probably say this, but I don't presume to tell you what that number should be. I can only tell you that historically, council has always looked at these numbers and basically bought into the two end numbers, the police number and the public works number, and so far historically has done exactly what you're doing now, saying, I think that one's too high. And that's why everything we've had prior to now has never gone to the ceiling for parks. And I understand the reason why, and it could be the same thing again. I just don't feel comfortable to tell you the number ought to be $1.89 or whatever. I can tell you that it's $1.28 now, and $2.17 is the max.
I think what will help us will be the comparative analysis I mentioned. I would really like to see where we fit with the other cities, similar size and similar dynamics. But let me share with the council of what's ahead of us in terms of our park needs. Bear in mind, and I think in this budget, we have about $6.1 million for park improvement. Most of that came from the state and federal government. But imagine not having that $6.1 million from the state and federal government and not being able to upgrade and improve our parks. Where would those dollars come from? You're talking about a department that generates very little revenue, but it impacts the general fund in a big way. So we need to find a middle ground. May not be the max here, but we need to look at it, and I'll be convinced once I see what other cities are doing. I'll be convinced where I think we should fall on this, but I agree that we needed to look at it, we need to update it, we need to have an increase. Because down the road is going to have a tremendous impact. I think the park director said months ago that it costs him like $4,000 per acre to maintain those parks. And that's significant. So we need to be very, very careful as we look at, but I do think we need an increase in impact fees to the city. So where that should fall, let's see what some of the other cities are doing, but we're going to have to do this.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we'll provide you some numbers and the whole purpose of bringing this...
You're probably going on the agenda, we'll have time to look at it, and I'd like to get...
This is going to go on the 21st, so basically between now and then we'll have those figures for you, but you need to keep one thing in mind. You're going to be talking about apples and oranges for a couple of reasons.
I understand.
One other reason, not too many municipalities have updated their numbers. A lot of them are in the process of updating their numbers. So you're going to be looking at our numbers, which are already updated, at least from the standpoint of the study, with one that is in the process of, and therefore the number doesn't exist yet. But we can do that. Anything that gives you enough comfort to make a decision. Yes, sir.
We're looking for a benchmark.
I understand.
That's all. But I think we're going to have to look at our future needs and really take a look at that master plan next 10, 15 years, where we need our parks should be, and make a decision on it. So.
Mayor, let me just finish and say that I completely agree that we need to look at these numbers, and I completely agree that there's areas of the community that are going to be redeveloped, and there is a cost that those redeveloped areas need to put into the pot so that they can pay for their growth as well. And if it's not the 217, it's got to be something considerable, because there are challenges out there for the parks. There are challenges out there for the police, and certainly for public works. So I certainly hope that we don't kill something like this, because we need to take a look at this.
I don't really...
Thank you, Mayor.
Obviously, we'll give you the comparative numbers so you can look at it, and again, I don't want to do this, but I guess it really can't be killed. You must do something. You really do. Now, again, if it's something in between, which is what we've all talked about, fine. And I'm sure the council will come up with a figure that at least 4 out of the 7 will be comfortable with, to say this should be the new ceiling, and that's fine. We will give you as much information to help you make that decision. And if there's anything else, ask, and I'll try to answer.
The Vice Mayor brought this up months ago, so I'm going to ask him to take a look at it, and instead of us sitting here for hours arguing on what the number should be, to bring back a recommendation. But as Mr. Porter said, we need to do something. We need to increase it. Where that number should be, Mr. Vice Mayor, take a look at it. We appreciate it. Mr. Vice Mayor?
I just want to put in perspective, and of course, notoriously bad math, but Rick, I come up with that the increase, proposed maximum increase, is about $1.46 a square foot, from $1.28 to $2.74. I think those are the numbers I pulled out of the information that's in front of us.
No, it's $1.20. You're talking about $1 for...
The old rate is $1.28.
The total rate, yes, sir.
And the new total proposed maximum rate would be $2.74.
Correct.
With the difference being $1.46.
That's correct.
So about $1.50 a square foot.
Okay.
And we aren't seeing a lot of new development in excess, sadly, of 2,000 square feet for residential. So on one hand, $3,000 of additional impact fees on the purchase of a unit amortized over a 30-year mortgage is nothing, particularly when you put it in the perspective of we're talking about a potential of $1.5 million a year more coming into the city budget to keep pace with this growth. Now, clearly, I agree with all the comments tonight that seemingly Parks is way out of balance with what would seem to be the real needs, and not only police, but public works. We've got roads, look at what we've obligated ourselves to spend for our electrical utility, not to mention water and wastewater, that will be our next big issue. We've got probably some capacity issues to address over the next couple of years, and I guess my perspective is that probably over the next couple of years, if we don't have it in place, we're never going to have it. And existing residents aren't paying for it, the developers and the builders aren't paying for it, it's being passed on to those who are creating the demand. But I think most glaringly is that calculation of $1.5 million additional coming into the city over the next year with the maximum being adopted. But the mayor's direction, Rick and Kurt and I will sit down and we'll go through Dr. Nichols' math and see where we need to be.
If I might add also, the Florida legislature last session passed the impact fee task force, which they're going to be reviewing all of the impact fees around the state. And we anticipate that this might cause legislation on the state level for impact fees. So it's going to affect everyone's impact fees. So after the council reviews these proposed impact fees, they might not have an opportunity to hire an expert to hire it, because to hire an expert to prepare the increases, because the methodologies might be set by state statute. So that might be also something to take into consideration.
One other thing, at this point, it's been advertised for council on the 21st. What we can do, if you want to sit down and talk about it first, we can either get consensus by the 21st or at the 21st, move it forward to another time certain and bring back those numbers. Don't you realize that it is set at this point in time? Or at least that's what we plan to do. So if you want to pull it off to the side, we can do that without any problem.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, the 21st will just be first reading anyway, so we'll have time to really digest just the resolution.
That's one reading.
Okay. So
You could continue it at that time.
we can continue that. Right, it could be deferred to a time certain from the November 21 meeting. Good. Mr. Shiver?
Mr. Mayor, Steve Shiver, 47 North Chrome Avenue. Just a few observations. I think everybody understands the need for impact fees and the increase. If you haven't done it since '03, there have been a significant, their factors have changed here in this community quite a bit to warrant re-looking at it. When was the study? What's the date of the study that you're looking at or referencing now? Do you recall?
The one from Dr. Nichols?
Yes.
Basically September.
I'm sorry?
September 21st of this year.
Of this year. And I think Councilman Hodge pointed out, while he sets a cap on police of 61, I think it was, you can't go above that cap. I think that's what the attorney was pointing out, but you can, within those categories, do a little here and a little here and not so much there. And that brings you to some parity that this council would determine. That's not mixing and matching dollars. However, it does allow you an opportunity to have flexibility within the categories that are set by the methodology used by Dr. Nichols. Also, I think you need to look at what the market has done. While our DRI, Keysgate Developers, while the DRI is exempt from a lot of impact fees, we've also imposed impact fees ourselves by our contributions to the park. Humpty Dumpty Park, we added another $650, I think it was, $1,000 to the park for development there. The school impact fees were clearly not enough. The city council, in your great wisdom, and the developers partnered together and created an EFBD of similar type impact fees to allow for schools. So there are other ways to get around just strict one number or impact fee increase. And then finally, comparing apples and apples, in best management practices, there are many, many ways to use benchmarks to compare apples and apples. While the studies may have differences in costs that exist within each category, say for example police, you have 4 officers per 1,000 or 6 officers per 1,000, and it costs you 62 cents. If it's in Coral Gables and they have 50 officers per 1,000 and it costs them 2 cents, there's some, the ability to compare them by apples and apples is there. And we've done that, and those studies are very, very, not easy, but it can be done. So I do think, Mr. Mayor, and I think Mr. Rosner, and your look-see over the next few weeks, which I think is a relatively short period of time to get that done, your comparison to other cities, I think, is extremely warranted. So it's not an easy issue. There's a certain complexity here that takes a lot to understand, but the market does drive a lot of this as well. At $3,000 over 30 years is nothing. I agree, Mr. Rosner, and I think that the developers will accept that. But I would make one suggestion. You have developer meeting every Friday, I believe it is, 10 o'clock. Mr. Shahada meets with the developers. I don't know if this was ever discussed at a developers meeting.
It was advised that it was going to be reviewed and come up with a new one, but they haven't seen the results yet.
So I would make a suggestion that you at least reach out to the development community and let them know that this is what you're considering, and look at the numbers. And we are not all demons in clothing. We do really sell a product, and it only sells if it makes sense and the market accepts it. So I would suggest that you also use the development community as a sounding board.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Angel Garroga, 2214 Northeast 41st Ave. I wanted to just make some comments in reference to this. To keep in mind that this is a one-shot deal. When you look at, I would suggest really going with the maximum. In the real estate market, the developers sell their properties at maximum price. No one's really discounting their properties, and they're going to sell them at the appraised price. Most of the developers, anyways, if your rate right now is 1.28, they're charging 1.5, 1.75 development fees anyways. So this is not going to cost them a penny. They're going to pass it on. Actually, they're making money even on top of it. If you raise it to 2.75, 7.4, they're just going to raise it to 3, whatever the case may be. But the market will decide if that is too high. So I think if they're going to sell their properties at maximum price, I think the city should take advantage of that. Once your land is gone and once all those properties are built out, you're not going to have an opportunity to get this money back. Not only that, if it is giving you the 1.8, that's $1 million there for possibly next year, some relief for the taxpayers. And if you don't get the money from here, you're going to have to get it from somewhere else. I mean, you're going to get it from the taxpayers one way or the other. So I think the market cap, let the market dictate the price of the properties, and let the buyer make his decision at that point. I would suggest maxing them out.
Thank you. Well, the Vice Mayor got his marching orders, and we don't need to. Can we go on to the next item?
There was a motion on that, right?
Do we need to vote on that?
Is there a motion?
There was a motion, I thought it was.
Been properly moved in second. Any additional comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2E is the request of a waiver of the Northwest Neighborhood Moratorium Resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'll defer to Development Services to this.
Good evening again. What we have here basically is the fact that when the Northwest Moratorium was put into place, it had a waiver process and a limitation of time for the waiver process, basically 90 days from when it was enacted. It then allows within that 90 days for an applicant to essentially ask for a waiver of not being able to do, in this case, a multifamily. This is a townhouse, a condominium development. So what we've got is a request from the applicant, which is required by the ordinance, the staff report, which basically tells you that all the specifics that are required in the ordinance have been met here from the standpoint of it being a valid request for a waiver. Drawings that we have here that shows you what the applicant intends to do. And we also have a review from the urban designer, because staff has been working with this applicant to get to a point where we're comfortable enough to bring it forward to you, say this is something that we believe you should go ahead and do. It basically boils down to that what you have in the area, this will give you in the west side of the city, a project that is similar to some of the projects you get in the east side of the city without being a PUD. They're providing a pool, they're providing open space, they're also providing one of the things that we're trying to do in new urbanism is to bring the parking in from the back so that your front street is not all parking or garages. In fact, if you look at what's here, it's shown as a carport. We've talked to the applicant a little bit more about it, and he is very willing to make that into a garage. So for practical purposes, if you agree that this does meet the requirement of the waiver and want to go forward to it, it has to go to the full council on the 21st. And again, if you say okay at that point, then the applicant goes back to DRC, P&Z, and back to council at the end run. But again, at this point, staff feels that this is a very worthwhile project and does really do what we're trying to do in most of the northwest part of the city. I could answer any other questions, and the applicant is here in case.
We would just be giving them approval to start their process.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no actual approval of the...
Correct. This is just approving that they can go through the process and essentially through the waiver process that anything else that comes after that time limit would not even get this benefit of the review.
And it conforms to the 10 units per acre requirement?
Yes, sir. It is 10 to the acre, which is what it allows as the medium density, which is the future land use for each of these parcels as well as the ones around them.
Thank you, Mayor. David, I guess this question would be directed to you. Recognizing that we can't negotiate concessions for zoning approvals, is this request deemed to be quasi-judicial?
Yes, this is part of a quasi-judicial process. When the council finally takes action at the regular council meeting, there'll be a formal quasi-judicial hearing and a decision made by the council. So you're correct, it is part of the quasi-judicial process because a decision to grant or deny a waiver is considered to be quasi-judicial action.
Okay, then, so I guess my real question is, although we've got some real nice drawings and concepts before us saying this is what we could do, how do we enforce if the waiver is granted and they come back to us for site planning under a quasi-judicial umbrella, how do we ensure that what's thrown at us now is what we're going to get? I mean, we're being told townhouses or condos.
Right.
And in the future, if this waiver's given and they come in for the rezoning to R3, what stick do we have to make sure that we all of a sudden don't have apartments being built?
Right. I think the stick that you'll have is really the waiver is really a waiver from the moratorium. The moratorium creates a temporary hold. All this waiver does is allow this application to be processed as it normally would, as if the moratorium didn't exist. So the rest of the development review process should give ample opportunity to impose whatever...
But it's for the purpose of requesting R3, correct?
Excuse me?
I think somewhere in here it says that the purpose of this is to come in, the applicant is proposing to rezone to multiple apartments, R3. Now, within R3, condos are included. Do we have the ability to mandate, when that R3 is requested, that it be a condominium form of development along the lines of these urban design guidelines, or once we open the gate, is that it once again?
When it comes time to consider the actual rezoning, a rezoning generally has to be approved or denied as presented. Usually a condition cannot be imposed on the rezoning. However, an applicant, when they apply for a rezoning, can voluntarily offer a covenant to the city to set forth how they will develop particular property.
So if they were to come in and say, this is a general elevation, it'll be a condominium, won't be rentals, won't be apartment type construction.
They can offer that in the form of a covenant. And I remember several years ago, we did have a developer that offered a covenant
individual ownership. You know, I remember that. I don't remember the name of the particular project, but I remember there was one.
But it wouldn't be appropriate then under quasi-judicial principles to even ask them tonight, incident to the waiver request, as to whether or not they would even be willing to do that.
It would not be, although that they've heard these concerns, they certainly have the right to offer things and further refine their project. But I feel that the rest of the development process will give the city also ample opportunities to do that.
But taking it a step further, assuming the waiver is granted and they can go forward, if they meet the criteria for the R3 zoning, we again do not have the ability to say do this project versus this project. Once you've got your zoning, you can go do whatever you want to do.
Although, someone could have a proposed rezoning that's compatible or consistent with the comprehensive plan. That doesn't mean that they're entitled to the most intense zoning available. They may have to accept something lesser. So I think there's safeguards in the process.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments? Any other comments? All in favor, say aye. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
Move on, Ms. Gard, is there a second? Is there a second?
I'm not going to second it.
There's no second. No second? Well, I'll second the motion. Mr. Vice Mayor, you have to take over. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the application for the waiver of the provisions of the Northwest Moratorium. Public comment? Do we have any public comment? Is the applicant present? Would the applicant like to make any comment or any other public input? If you do, please come to the podium and give us your name and address, and if you're representing, let us know who you're representing, or if you're a principal, we need to know that as well.
Mr. Vice Mayor, Councilman, members, my name is William Garcia. This is Ramon Rios from Armas LLC. They are the owners of the property. Arma LLC is the owner of the property. We understand your concerns with regard to our request, understanding that Arma has been working with the city since January of this year, so a better part of 10 months, in seeking your approval of the building department, zoning department with regard to the plan. We're fully understanding the request and the concerns of the city, and we're fully willing to meet with those concerns, particularly your concerns, Vice Mayor, that there may be a change in the plan, which we understand and respect. The plans that have been submitted have been reviewed by building department, by zoning department. We've been working diligently with water and sewer and every other department of the city to get something which meets the city's request, the city's requirements to fulfill their purpose and their intent for the neighborhood. If the city in further meetings needs some additional covenants and need to be put in place to satisfy any additional concerns, we're fully willing to do so as well.
So then would you be proffering as a condition to approval that it be a project along the conceptual lines presented, that it would be a condominium or townhouse type project and not an apartment type construction?
It's a townhouse project, to be clear. I wanted to make sure that distinction. And yes, sir. The conceptual plans that have been submitted have been something that have been developed over the last 10 months with the city and the city planners, and that is what we intend to proceed forward with. And the reason we requested a waiver was that the moratorium came into place several months ago after we had already been working with the city for the better part of 7 or 8 months to come up with this conceptual plan. So the answer to your question, Mr. Vice Mayor, is yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Thank you. Rick, the deadline for applications for the waiver is later this week, later this month?
25th of November, sir.
Okay, and we don't have any inkling that there's anybody else out there?
Nobody has applied. That's all I can tell you. I don't know if anybody's inkling, but nobody has applied.
Okay, nobody can leave this room until the 25th. Any further public comment? Good. Comments from council.
Thank you. So basically, there's no other application, so we did allow a time period for anyone that wanted an opportunity to put an application to do so. And this is not a single out event where we're assisting an individual to obtain a waiver. It was a wide open thing that was available and had a deadline date attached to it.
that deadline was put in the ordinance in the first place to essentially come to a point in time in which there were no more waivers, nothing else. But apparently the way it was written, we had to have at least that option to start with, that they could come forward. You can say no, but they could come forward. And the only reason we're bringing this one forward is that this applicant came forward. If nobody else brings anything forward by the 25th, you won't hear from me with this issue again. It cannot do it at that point in time. It's past the expiration date of the waiver process.
Well, in that case, that changes my mind a little bit.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Hodge?
That's it.
Anything further from council, Mr. Porter?
Just one question, just let me make sure. This still goes through the standard process?
Yes, sir.
This just allows it to go?
Yes, sir. Once, if you guys approve it tonight, it goes to the council on the 21st. If you approve it there, it says, okay, you're by the waiver, go back to DRC, P&Z, and then bring it back to us. At that point in time, it should look very similar to what this is based on the applicant's comments, and hope at that point in time you'll bless it the way it goes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Walton, before I close the public hearing, since there was a proffer made to take it through, if the approval was given tonight, that it would be taken through the process as a townhouse project along these guidelines that have been generally laid out in the drawings. Does the motion need to be amended, or with that?
It's not necessarily amended. I think the staff will follow up with the applicant to make sure they proffer that covenant as they promised.
Okay. Thank you, David. I will close the public hearing and roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Councilwoman Gardner? Yes. Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
The motion was to approve, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's your gavel.
Finally, we're on the 2F. This is a long meeting.
Yes, it is.
2F, the amended CRA budget. I'll move it. Moved by Mr. Porter, second by Mr. Hodge. Any comments? We've dealt with this under the HERO plan. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Under the Finance Committee, 3A is an RFP for the Homestead Air Reserve-based joint land use study. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Madonna, second by Councilman Porter. Any question on the land use study?
Question, Mayor.
Mr.
For clarification, I'll make sure my memory is correct. The city is involved acting only as the conduit for various levels of grant money. This is not really any city money going in this. We're the conduit for the grants.
There may be some city money going into it. There's 25% match, which we can do in kind or with cash. We are sharing that with the Defense Alliance. The exact amount, I'm not quite sure yet. We've done some work already.
And the other impacted municipalities or county entities aren't interested in helping contribute?
Defense Alliance is the county, Dade County.
Okay, but Florida City or Cutler K or whatever they are?
They are involved. And once you approve this, this will go back to the full meeting of the committee for approval. This was a subcommittee that met and approved. We take the results back, get the approval of the full JLU's committee. If we get the meeting prior to the upcoming council meeting, it'll be on the consent agenda. If not, it'll be on the following council consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. No other comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Purchase of transmission distribution lines material.
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Lawson, second by Councilman Hodge. Any question? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Park and Rec Committee, professional service agreement. No? Yeah, that's right. Professional service agreement, Bamilla, DeMille and Partners.
Those guys.
Those guys.
Yeah.
Offered by Mr. Councilman Hodge, the second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Garner. Question? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
How long's it going to take?
Mr. Porter, Public Safety?
We have a concessional plan for Whitcop.
Oh, okay.
The add-on.
Let's see that.
Mayor and Council, for the past few weeks, B&A, Bonello, and Jamila Consultants have been working on a conceptual master plan, conceptual plan for Whitcock Park. I'd like to introduce Mr. Robert Gustafson to present the plans to you.
All right, thank you for your patience. Woodcock Park here, the funds available for this are through two grants, the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program and the Florida Safe Neighborhoods. That really dictated the program elements required for the park. To meet those, we were looking at providing recreational activities, 2 basketball courts lighted, 2 tennis courts, and various amenities such as a large picnic pavilion, benches, lights for safety, and in part of the development of this concept, it was very important that we met with the public. That's the second board right there. We met on Saturday as a community workshop vision session, and we had 13 residents of Homestead show up. We were looking at 6 people, or 6 of those, I'd say half of the group were children, giving us their input about the park as to what they thought would be a great park. Based on their recommendations, we felt that our program development was right in line with what's needed for Woodcock Park. Right now, we're looking at a cost estimate that's working with the 2 grants, $200,000 each, and there is some future opportunities for improvements such as restrooms, and we're also looking at providing features such as drinking water fountains. So with that, if there's any questions on Woodcock Park, I'd like to answer those.
Question, Mayor. In your public comments with the community, was there any discussion about the lighted basketball and the time frame in which they'll be on or off? I know some people in communities have concerns about all-night basketball, or was that ever brought up?
That was not brought up at the meeting, but in prior parks it has been a really big issue with the lighting and make sure that it's directed, and even possibly closing the park at dark. So we were looking at lighted parks with providing that extra nighttime activity and looking at providing lighting that doesn't shine on the neighborhoods.
Well, let me ask the manager then, would there be an hourly time that the lights would be on, say till 9, till 11, till 10?
I think that's a procedure we can set to see what fits the community tolerance.
Right.
Certainly really high residential impact.
Yeah, there's a lot of residential on all sides there, and just want to make sure that the community does realize that if there is going to be lit basketball, that the city's going to have to address a time schedule in which they're allowed to play. That would be my only concern. It's great to see a lit area for kids to play, obviously after dark. But there's a lot of residential right there. So that's my only concern is a time frame. As you as a policy, or you bring back to us as a policy when we leave it up or leave it on until.
Councilman Porter, we did meet last week with a representative from Musco Lighting. They have a new lighting system out, the green light system, that has a very low impact to the nearby residential areas. So we can provide the needed lighting at the night with very minimal impact to the surrounding houses. And I would guess we'll probably have those facilities open at night, probably 9, at the latest 10 o'clock. But we'll get additional community input before we establish those times.
I don't think it's not only maybe the appearance of the lighting, but the noise of the kids playing and screaming is also an issue. That's what they do when they play.
Well, I can tell you one of the issues brought up last Saturday at the community workshop was the current condition of the park. It's frequented by activities and individuals that are really undesirable there. And the neighborhoods were really receptive and real positive to us developing the park, the city developing that park to make it an active park rather than a passive park, and hopefully that element will disappear from that area. So it was very positive.
We get a few extra cents for the police department and the impact fees. We could send a policeman over there every now and then.
27 cents.
Sorry, I got off track there.
I second that motion.
Thank you. That was my only concern. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Let me compliment the effort. I think it's really going to add a dimension to that neighborhood, just having an improvement in that park area. So I like the conceptual drawing. Nicely done. Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Porter, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gahn. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And finally, we have public safety, Mr. Porter.
Mayor, I just want to defer this to the manager or someone, there isn't any police officer here. I know this is a grant that allows us to have a system, a communication system to, in circumstances where there is a perceived or a real national emergency, it opens up the ability for the police department to communicate multi-jurisdictional. Am I correct with this, Mr. Manager? So it's grant-driven, and it's certainly being that we're at the nuclear facility, Homestead Miami Speedway, Homestead Air Reserve Station, in some sort of an unreasonable emergency, it would be able to multitask, I guess, with other agencies, Coast Guard, Customs, all the other agencies that would be involved. So it's almost like we really have to have the ability to do that in these certain circumstances. So if there's any question, I obviously have to ask the manager.
It's part of a program called the Domestic Preparedness Equipment Program through the U.S. Department of Justice, and they work through the state, through the DCA, Department of Community Affairs. One of the requests we put in to participate in this, and we're awarded the what they call it, Radio Interoperability Gateway System. So I know that says a lot to you there. You have no more questions, but the only thing that it requires is that we take that equipment, that we maintain it, we train on it, that we participate in 2 exercises a year related to the equipment, using the equipment. That's set up by the state for domestic preparedness.
But it does expand the PD's ability to interact multi-jurisdictional.
Yes.
In states of emergency, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So.
The motion for approval? Oh.
Motion.
I'll ask. Is there a motion for approval?
Move, Mr. Chairman.
A second by Mr. Hodge. Any discussion, further discussion, public comments? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Back to you.
That ends the agenda. Any business for the committee to hold, Mr. Councilman?
No, sir, not this time.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
No, thank you.
Ms. Garner?
No business, Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Porter?
No, sir, Mayor, thanks.
Mr. Manager? No, sir, Mayor. Mr. Attorney, any business? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much for coming.
Got one more meeting.